guys, welcome back to OCD Real Talk with the fellas. Today we want to talk about unconditional other acceptance because we talk a lot about self-acceptance, but I think other acceptance gets covered quite less, and why that is also important. Um, because sometimes the pathway to accept yourself is also to accept other people. That's what I think. But we can get into why and how that works as well. Who wants to go first? Any thoughts? Initial thoughts? Yes,
I
go.
got one. So for me, this was a really tough one. I actually struggled a lot with some anger issues for a period of time after I had really bad debilitating anxiety, and then the anger almost created more and bad like sensations, like kind of the same. But I had some stuff happen with my family and in business that just made me just super angry, and what really helped me is I would look at people based on where they came from, what their family was like, their parents, their environment, mental disorders, physical disorders, um, maybe social aspects about themselves, and their job, their relationships that maybe they've been in, any abuse that took place. And I know it sounds, like when you really know somebody, or if it's a random person, a little bit, you can kind of. But when I do that, what happens is I'm able to put myself in a position where I can really be in their shoes, and then I can understand them as a person, and take my emotions out of it, because then I can see who they are. um, and knowing that they're just a random person that I'm maybe encountering in my life, or maybe someone who's around for a long time. But when I'm able to break down those things about them, and look at them, I'm able to see who they are, and it gets rid of a lot of the emotions of being frustrated at others, irritated at others, not being able to forgive someone. And that really helped me with a lot with other acceptance, is just really almost breaking down the individual based on their life, that created their perspective, or how they act as a person.
Would you say you're in a good place with your anger now?
Pretty good for the most part. I mean, I would say the only time it happens, like if I ever have like anxiety, sometimes I'll be a little irritated. But yeah, it's 1,000 times better.
That's good. Elliot, what about you? How did other acceptance, was that like a hurdle for you at any point?
Yeah, I think after doing the recovery work myself, you could just come to realize that other people, they have just like value for being alive and well. And like the reason why people act in certain ways is because of so many things. So you've got like, their upbringing, their genetics, their environment. So many different factors go into why a person will act in a certain way. And I think a lot of people miss that. When a person does like a bad act or a stupid act, you think that's the entirety of the person. But when you like look deeply into that, there's a reason why they've acted in that way. They're going to act well. They're going to act poorly. They're going to act morally. They're going to act immorally. So it's just about not writing off somebody entirely for something that they do. So, for example, now when someone like does something to me, so for example, I was on a roundabout the other day and someone cut me up. Um, a person without OCD and unconditional other acceptance probably would have got really irate and mad at that. But I just allowed it. I let it happen. I just thought, you know what? He's clearly just trying to get somewhere. He's in the wrong lane. Fallible human. He might have just not known where he's going, and you just sort of allow it. And in that way, you have a lot more peace about life. You're not really getting too bothered by what other people do. You just sort of accept it for what it is. So, I think that's a really good aspect to unconditional other acceptance. You just stay on a much more even and rational keel towards other people. So, yeah,
And
that's what.
and and with like HOCD, because I mean, it's not like you did not accept other gay people, but in the sense of like, but you never also had to think about their life necessarily when you start to go through it, right? In a certain sense, because you were just living before, and that was all. You weren't really thinking of like how does their life operate, right? Because I would
Yeah,
say like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, because like when you're trying to accept yourself as
yeah,
perhaps one of them, right? You do then
yeah,
have to place yourself in their life. So in a sense, you have to have acceptance of them and their life
Yeah,
to be able to accept yourself. Would that be correct?
yeah, yeah. That's so true. I remember when I had to do one of my really toughest exposures. So I remember I went into a shop one time, like a clothes shop, and I had to say to the guy that worked there, oh, I'm shopping for a shirt for my boyfriend.
Hmm.
And that was like a really tough exposure, and like putting myself in those shoes, it made you sort of realize that how tough it would be for a gay person to sort of put up with, like, societal rejection and all those sort of things. So I think, yeah, when you do have certain sort of taboo or difficult things with OCD, you can actually realize the viewpoint of other people, and in that respect and in that regard, you have a lot more sort of compassion and sympathy for other people. So in that way, it's actually very good. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Momin.
Yeah. Sam.
I think a good way of practicing unconditional self acceptance is practicing unconditional other acceptance. So, first of all, if you can learn to accept other people, so let's say someone who's done a bad act, or say you can't accept yourself because you've done you've done a bad act. If you can look at it as someone else has done that, how can you separate them from that act that they've done? That really helps with applying it to yourself as well, and that's what I did a lot initially along the journey. But yeah, it also relates to with our OCD, so flaws in other people, so accepting them and things you might not like, certain traits that they've got, certain things they say, certain things they do. So it can relate to all themes. It's not just one theme. That's it. It's very helpful just across the board and with life in general. I think with unconditional over acceptance, I really wish that the most or all society actually applied it, because I think with hostile and anger and rage, if people could actually apply that and believe it, I mean, you're not going to feel revenge on someone. Of course, you're going to change things you don't like and conditions you don't want. Of course, you're going to aim for that. But if you're constantly trying to get revenge, or you feel angry on 27, then it's not going to end well. So I really think that I wish more people actually applied it and stuck by it.
And I think that, I mean, and I genuinely believe this. I've even before working on OCD recovery, very much saw it happening as well. People do judge other people for things that they might hate about themselves, right? So let's say
Yeah,
someone is like really annoyed at someone who talks too much. Ironically, that would be someone who also talks too much themselves. So it would be very, and we see that like when people are really struggling with also self-acceptance, right? They're also really struggling with other acceptance because they are judging themselves exactly for the things they judge other people for. So it's really not, a lot of the time it's also not, those two things are not that separate. Those two things go very hand in hand and are um very complementary in a bad way to each other. That's why people are often like stuck in that, no, but I can't accept. The reason you're also unable to accept yourself for that is because you're harshly judging others for being a similar way. So you really have to, because when we're meeting people, we're only seeing a snapshot of them when we're interacting with them. In that interaction, that's the snapshot we're looking at. Like Paul and Elliot also pointed out, we're not looking at their environment where they're coming from. And sometimes if you really imagine yourself in their environment, when they, let's say, go back home and what kind of people they're sitting with, around the friends they are, the content they're consuming, the environment they're in, you really start to slowly but surely see that I can see why they are the way they are. Which again,
Yeah.
which is not a justification for like bad behavior necessarily, but at least you're able to chart the logic with which why they are behaving that way, and that kind of takes the sting out of that very like harsh kind of anger and judgment away a little bit.
I think when it comes with OCD as well, people aren't going to understand for OCD. They don't need to, and they're not going to. So if for various reasons, and even if they misunderstood you, it all links into the unconditional over acceptance. That people are going to have those beliefs for a reason. They're going to have their perspectives, and you can't go and change someone's belief. You might be able to educate them. You might be able to tell them why you disagree with them, but to say they don't think that, and that's why anger comes about, revenge, jealousy, whatever. So it's a key point to remember that people will have their beliefs. So you have to accept the person along with their beliefs. You can't just write someone off just because they don't understand you or don't accept you.
And I will also point out quickly as well, and I want to hear like a little bit from Paul on this as well, because he was talking about this earlier, is that when you are dealing with people and let's say they're doing something bad or unfair, or they're really not making the situation great, right? Or they're trying to be underhanded with you or something like that. Our initial reaction is to either scream, yell, just completely villainize them, right? But there's also middle ground as well. Like you can also, the acceptance doesn't mean that you can't bring up an issue with someone, right? You can bring up an issue with someone, but you can do it in a decent way as well. Like it doesn't have to be a screaming match necessarily. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean it has to uh, turn into an aggressive, violent kind of confrontation. So, Paul, the reason I want to ask you is that a lot of people are often talking about, no, but my family is doing this. My friend did say this, like, but this is actually bad. I can't stand for this bad kind of behavior, right? So with you saying that there were like something happening with people around you, right? How were you able to channel acceptance while also improving that dynamic in a more practical way?
So there's this book, it's How to Control Your Anger Before Your Anger Controlled You by Albert Ellis. Really great title name for a book. I'm just kidding. It was a really good book. It really helped me. One of the things that helped me a lot is just wearing the symptoms, like the anxiety feeling like, or sorry, the anger feeling like anxiety. A lot of people think that, oh, you just need to let this out, or you just need to talk about it. And, talking about it and bringing it up constantly doesn't really help it. It's better to be uncomfortable with those feelings. So over time, you desensitize yourself and get used to them. And then I used to be in a situation where when these things would come up, I would avoid them and be like, oh, I need to go time out. I need to sit and think and get in control of myself. And what I had to do was I had to allow myself to be in those positions to have those uncomfortable conversations and not avoid any of them, and remind myself when they came up that like I can communicate and not scream. I don't have to treat anyone bad to get my point across, and it's not rude to have a different opinion. It's not rude to talk to people about how you want to be treated. You know what I'm saying? So I had to really just, sorry.
No, that's a good point that you make. And I think that, that's what a lot of people miss as well. And it takes time and practice as well. You won't be able to keep your cool when you're trying to practice, trying to be cool and calm when you're trying to talk to them about a disagreement. But it comes with time and practice. And you can communicate your thoughts and discuss a disagreement without it getting heated.
Yep.
A good exercise that I've done is talking to someone or having a debate with someone that I know I'm going to disagree with. So we might have very different upbringings, very different backgrounds, very different beliefs. Now, I would get quite deep into the conversation and try and accept where they're coming from and seeing why they have that perspective, rather than just go, nope, I don't agree with that. That's a load of rubbish, blah, blah, blah. Because then it helps build your low frustration tolerance as well. If you can stay calm when it's something that you completely disagree with, then I think that's a great practice. And like I said, I did it many times. And then, just seeing yourself, okay, I'm getting a bit angry here, and just look at why you're getting angry. You're writing them off just because you don't agree with them. So there's quite a fine line. But I feel that's a good practice for unconditional over acceptance.
One thing I'll say too with like anger, if you can do little exercises to almost start little arguments, I know it sounds really bad, but not like anything bad, but like when you do something, someone doesn't like or kind of irritate someone, to put yourself in a position where maybe you have a little argument, it's like good practice for, tolerating. That's one thing that I did. It's one thing I still do.
And I think like Sam also said, I think there's also like that thing of really having a proper conversation, trying to understand their logic, because people don't want to understand another person's logic. They just want to go towards, no, you're wrong, I'm right. No, you don't understand. You know, you're not saying this, right? People don't actually patiently, calmly look at what is the other person's um logic that they're
Yeah.
operating with. Um, Elliot, I also want to ask you if
Yeah.
you ever came across a situation like this, because I think with fear of rejection, it's not just about lack of, again, like I just spoke about, it's not just about lack of self-acceptance you're having, but it's also lack of other acceptance, that almost like, how dare somebody have this opinion about me? Like they must not have this opinion about me. So did you ever have that problem with just really wanting to have control over what people thought about you?
Yeah, definitely. I remember obviously when I was like stuck with like HOCD for like about 5 or 6 years. I had like my brother and sister. They were sort of getting in and out of relationships, and they were sort of just me, just sort of stuck on the sidelines because I'm just stuck, not being sure. And then I remember I'd have like loads of comments from like, oh, my friends and family, oh, what's wrong with you? Like, is are you like gay? Like all that sort of stuff. And like I'm just sat there at dinner and it's just so awkward. Like my uncle as well, just winding me up, and probably being serious as well. So that was there was a lot of that going on as well. But yeah, it's just fear of rejection, and you got to accept that other people aren't going to understand what you're going through. The thing with OCD sometimes as well. Sorry, I'll just add.
No.
You come across as like, I want to say this, but you come across as sort of being normal, if I can say that. It comes across as there's something not being wrong with you. Like for example, with other people with other conditions, I don't know, say you had, I don't know, motor neurons disease, or I don't know, schizophrenia, or whatever. That can sort of aesthetically look a lot different. With OCD, it can just look like you're normal, if I'm allowed to say that, which is why I think it makes it even more difficult for other people to understand what you're going through, because you come across as being #normal. And I had that a lot with my friends, and like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You're completely fine. You're completely normal. But they don't get it. You're not. You have OCD, right? So
Yeah.
that's another thing you have to just bear in mind. Yes, you might seem that you don't have anything wrong with you, but you're just gonna have to accept that they're not gonna understand that, and then yeah, people are gonna sort of judge and reject you, and like have the same thoughts that my family had about me with with,
It's
with
a
your
it's a
thing.
different
So
it's a completely
yeah,
different format of thinking, OCD. It's not your regular average format of thinking. Elliot, like,
yeah,
did you also have to, so with when your siblings were dating and you weren't, did you also have to accept them? Was there any jealousy or envy with that
yeah.
point as
So
well?
that's a great point, Momin. So yeah, I was very, very like jealous and bitter. I'd say bitter is the word, because I
Mm,
thought, oh, I'd love to have like this nice dating life with no issues, like all be really nice. And it wasn't like that for me. And yeah, I'd sort of just be stuck, and I'd see them like doing all of that, my friends as well, and I just felt like a complete outcast and that I was missing out, and I couldn't have that. So definitely was a bit of bitterness and jealousy there, but obviously that comes from my rational beliefs that they absolutely I absolutely shouldn't be like robbed of this thing. They absolutely shouldn't be having the dating life that I want. It's so awful that I'm not able to have that. And yeah, it sort of ties in with jealousy and all that sort of thing. So yes, yeah, I really was bitter and jealous looking back, but now I'm over
Just
it. So
I think with that, Elliot, it's so you got to be careful you don't fall down the victim trap,
yeah,
because it can be a lot. Oh, everyone feels sorry for me. I've got OCD. They're not going to understand that. But you're going, oh, I want the life you've got. I want to have your brain. You haven't. You got a stress-free life. You can go home and relax and be carefree. So you can so easily go down that victimhood cycle.
yeah,
You see it all the time. Sufferers do it a lot. Where I wish I had that, or I wish I could go out and date and not have all these doubting thoughts. I wish I could go out and drive and not have hit and run OCD. So if you're there constantly putting it away and playing the victim, and that ain't going to get you anywhere as well. So you can see,
exactly. Yeah, it's a dead end result. Like, there's nothing. You're gonna get nothing from just being jealous. Like, everyone else is on their own path. You're on their own path. Um, and we're actually better off for it coming at the end of it, and like the perspective and stuff we have on life. We're actually in a better position than they are in the end. So, not that I compare myself to other people, but in the end, it does. It works out. Like, it really, really does.
I think jealousy is a topic that we should also keep in our pocket for a real talk as well, because I think it's a very interesting topic to go into when we talk about acceptance and what kinds of beliefs can be behind any form of like jealousy, whether it's being jealous of someone's life or mental health or their relationship, or retroactive jealousy, right? My partner has had
Yeah.
more sex than me in the past. Like, how dare they have more sex? And that's something that can become a bit of a point of jealousy as well.
It's a fine line with healthy jealousy, isn't it, and unhealthy jealousy. So you can
I've never
strive to
heard
be,
of healthy jealousy. What's healthy jealousy?
or you can strive to be, let's say you want someone's rich and successful, so you might be healthily jealous of them, where you can strive to be like them and have as much money, be as successful. But if you're unhealthy towards it and just downing them or constantly, I don't know, you're looking at it in a negative way.
I'll have to
Where
think
you,
about that. I genuinely, like, I will think about if jealousy can, because in my mind, I've always conceptualized jealousy as a bad thing. I've never, because for me, like, what you're describing is more like being inspired by someone and taking someone's lead in a way. So I don't know. I'll really think about it actually.
we've got angry jealousy, but also healthy jealousy. That's how I see it anyway.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, then there's a healthy bitterness as well, like Elliott had, you know. um,
Healthy.
but no, I think unconditional other acceptance is something that like we are also running out of time. But do you guys want to rejoin and talk more, or do you want to end it over here?
Well, that was quick.
I mean, what else? Do we have any other things we could talk about when it comes to this? Like anything that pops in your guys' head? For me, just looking at people in that way really helped me the most. That's really what's. I mean, you could talk about, deservingness. I think deservingness from other people is
Yeah,
probably
that's a big one. Yeah, I
yeah.
have that because I was really I was also very bitter, by the way, towards other people because for me it was all about why are other people not catering to me? Why are they not
Yeah.
acting according to exactly how I want them to act on? So it was definitely also that lack of control that you have on other people's actions. So again, there's a control element that you have
Yeah.
to break down as well that you end up getting frustrated with. Um, but I think we should end here, but we should go into like this more in another real talk. But thanks for being here, guys. Good topic to choose and a lot more to explore over here. We have a lot more ideas now.
Okay, so
Thanks,
we're coming
guys.
back. We're coming right back.
No, I think we're ending here.
All right, see you guys. I'll
All
see you
right,
next week.
see you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.